The biggest, it's a win if it's a win we've seen this season so far. The 76ers get the victory, but out of a very slim margin, 109 to 103. It got rocky there in the end. We're going to break it all down right here on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your hosts, Keith Pompey and Kayla Santiago. And if you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us wherever you listen to your podcast, in addition, you can also read all things Philadelphia 76ers with a free daily newsletter. That's on LockedOnDaily.com. So make sure you go check that out today. Once again, that's the free daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So we're going to look at this game overall. The Philadelphia 76ers, they come out on top of the worst team in the Eastern Conference currently, 109 to 103. Look at the fourth quarter numbers, as that's where they fell just a little bit in this game. In addition to, are they losing the fans right now? What are the ticket prices looking like? And are fans coming to see them? Well, Keith, this was a game that was looked at as not really even an NBA level going into it. We saw a ton of names on that injury report for the 76ers. It was Joel Embiid, Andre Drummond, Paul George, Kyle Lowry. And on the other side, it was Jordan Poole and others to name for the Washington Wizards. I mean, this game was almost out of reach for the Philadelphia 76ers there at the end, but there was a lot of names not out there on the court, and that definitely hurt maybe both sides a lot of it at the end there.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. I mean, the product inside the Wells Fargo Center, was the result of load management, injuries, and the Washington Wizards tanking. The Sixers ended up winning. I mean, that's what it was. I mean, the Sixers ended up winning 109 to 103. I mean, they improved their record to 15 and 20. The Wizards dropped to 6 and 29, but the game was not of NBA standard, right? I mean, the difference in the game was Tyrese Maxey getting 29 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds. 21 of his points came in this after intermission. And then it was Yabu, right? What did he do? My man came out and had 21 points. He made 5 of 7 3-pointers. He had 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks. But, when you talk about it, not only did Joel Embiid not play, Paul George didn't play, right? Kyle Lowry didn't play. Then you have KJ Martin still injured. We all know about Jared McCain. And then the Washington Wizards, it was kind of like the Sixers came out and said these guys weren't going to play on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, it was like the Washington Wizards were like, hold my beer. Like, yo. Right. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, here's the guys who didn't play for them. Jordan Poole didn't play. Left hip contusion. Malcolm Brogdon didn't play. Right foot pain. Marvin Bagley didn't play. Right knee sprain. Sadiq Bey from Villanova. Left knee ACL surgery. Tristan Vucevic, he didn't play. Right ankle sprain. Johnny Davis, non-COVID illness. Alex Sars, non-COVID illness. So, it was to a point where the Wizards came out there with, a lineup that you're looking at and you're saying to yourself, like, is this a G League team? It was just really, it was bad. I mean, they had guys out there starting that you wouldn't imagine who would start for in an NBA game.
I mean, you look at this Wizards team too. Jared Butler scored 26 points for them, and he was really carrying them, especially early on in that second quarter going to the third. And then it was Kispert that was able to kind of help rally them back. And you're looking at this and saying, okay, Kispert did have a good game a game ago for the Washington Wizards, but Butler, even the coach said it at halftime, saying, he doesn't get a lot of playing time. He's in there today. He's making the most of his impact and of his minutes, and that shows his professionalism and how he is as an athlete. But we're talking about names that we really never say in a normal NBA game. I mean, I understand when you want to load manage guys, but it's crazy that it's kind of a chess game now in the NBA. And what does it say about this product too? Because you look at it and you say, okay, the Wizards are coming off a back-to-back in games as well, but all those lists and all those names after the 76ers also having a lot of guys sit out. I mean, come on, that is basketball you do not want to watch at this point in the season for either side. I mean, I agree with you on that, Keith. It was bad. And we talked about the frustration that we discussed of, Joel Embiid and Paul George not playing, saying this is a game for them to have that opportunity to work on chemistry with the team and see how it can go. But this was a game that nobody apparently needed to work on anything because everybody just decided to sit out.
Yeah, I mean, what does it say? I mean, we look at the Sixers. We kind of knew they were going to do this, right? I mean, you knew they
Right.
were going to load manage. I mean, another guy who didn't play was Andre Drummond, which was funny because they were saying he was going to be a game time decision. But you go in the locker room and he ain't even there, right? Like he wasn't even, they didn't even have a jersey or anything out there for him. So I'm like, okay. So they're basically just trying to like make the other team think that there was a chance he was going to play. But I mean, let's be 100. Like the Washington Wizards want to tank. So
Yeah.
what they're doing is it's like, yeah, guys are not playing, but if they were really trying to win and they think like they had a chance, now don't get me wrong, like Sadiq Bey, ACL surgery. Now he's not going to be able to play. But there's some other injuries where you look at it and you say to yourself, they could play if they really weren't trying to lose games. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? But when you talk about the product overall, I mean the Brooklyn Nets had 8 guys yesterday who didn't play.
Yeah.
So the product is bad because this is you're getting, I hate to say it, but a lot of instances you're having teams uh basically G League players out there playing. And I don't want to have a knock against them because it sounds kind of ill to say that, but that's what it is. You got two-way guys, out there playing in the games who really should be in the G League.
And those guys are playing with a lot of heart. Once again, it's no knock to them, but at the same time, yeah, the Wizards, they're probably trying to capture the flag at this point, right? But it really is a players' league. And we've been saying that season after season, but it almost seems like it's even more to the breaking point right now. They try to put more ruling and more restrictions on load management, and they've been trying to follow through with it throughout the season. We saw some fines come the Philadelphia 76ers way, but all of a sudden, team after team after team is starting to do this right now. And we're going to touch on it and how it affects just tickets and fans and everything like that. But what makes people want to go out and go to a game when it's so last minute scratch, the best player on the team's not going to play, or you're going to have 7 to 8 of your guys out? I mean, people are not realistically going to want to watch that either. And once again, I understand everybody wants to stay healthy, but Keith, there's no balance right now because it's really happening all around the league. And the Wizards kind of answered to what the 76ers put out on their injury report, too.
But you know what? I will say this. I think this, people will say it's happening all around the league, but I don't know of any team like the 76ers where you have a superstar player who
That is
doesn't
true.
play.
Yeah.
You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, I'll be
Hmm.
honest with you. Then you have Paul George and the team is struggling. And I know we're going to touch base on this, a little bit more, but you're talking about people not wanting to come. The 76ers announced that it was a sellout crowd yesterday. They said that they had over 19,000 fans there, right? 19,762. That's what they had. But you didn't see 19,762. And we're going to touch base on this in more in detail, but I just want to get it out there. Like tickets in the assembly room in the arena were going for $1 with fees, right? $1. You could get a ticket for $1 on StubHub. Then tickets could be purchased for $8 plus fees in section 118, which is in the lower bowl. That's a great view. And then you can get them for $4 plus fees in sections 206 and 219. So when you say people don't want to come see this product, they don't. They don't.
That they don't. They need some Mamba mentality. Kobe Bryant used to say that he would want to go out there on any given night, even if he wasn't feeling well. Same thing with Michael Jordan, because you never know when one family or one of the biggest fans or anything like that, maybe that's the only game they can come to. Now, I know it might not be realistic when a real injury is out there, but people don't want to go out and watch, even if it's $1 right now, because they don't know who they're going to see out there on the floor. That's the
Well,
reality of the
yeah.
situation. Yeah.
And also, let's face it, the Sixers product hasn't really been that good either when
Yeah.
guys
People,
playing.
people
So
don't want to
yeah,
watch it.
yeah, they don't want to watch it. Yeah.
They're not reliable, and this team needs to start getting more reliable, because this is the point of the season where you're starting to question a lot of different things, even in the game against the worst team right now in the Eastern Conference that is truly trying to take tank. So we're going to get onto those fourth quarter numbers a little bit and focus into this game and see how the 76ers almost somehow collapsed here last night. We're going to talk about more of that on Locked On 76ers in just a moment. And today's episode is also brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has a solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments as well at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor's visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet packaging. Plain packaging with Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team. Complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you could get your free prescription today. So make sure you go check it out on Locked On NBA. You can use that code. That's rocketrx.com, code Locked On NBA, LOCKEDON NBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions do apply. Rocket RX, go check it out today. All right. I really want to touch on the fourth quarter here, because this almost turned into a catastrophe for the Philadelphia 76ers. So there's a few points that I have to bring up, because looking at this game, you have 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, 96-93 in favor of the 76ers. Empty possession. There's a shot clock violation. You say, okay, the 76ers are starting to make this game close for no reason. There was 23 seconds left, and the stat was 29-15 in the Wizards' favor of how they were winning that fourth quarter. They were outscoring the Philadelphia 76ers. Yabu has a big block there at the end. They come out on top. I mean, Keith, this team really just almost lost it too. Tyrese Maxey forcing a lot of shots. They're trying to work the ball around. Nothing's working. They're sloppy turnovers. I get it. Andre Drummond and Joel Embiid weren't there to be in the middle, but there were some points in that fourth quarter where the 76ers really just let go of this game, like we've seen before this season happen against other teams.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, when we look at this, early in the fourth quarter, they had a 15-point lead.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, empty possessions. To me, like they argue too much with the officials. Like every time they miss a shot, they're like, "Hey, how come you didn't call it? How come you didn't call it?" It's like, dude, get back on D. Don't worry about that. Play the game. So, but at the same time, some of the shots that they were taking were horrible shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it just looks like it that we look at this team as a team that isn't good enough to maintain a lead, and we talked about this team not having Joel Embiid and Paul George and a couple other people, right? Well, this other team didn't have anybody, right? They didn't have anybody, if you really want to think about it, besides Kyle Kuzma. But they need to do better. They have to. And the thing is it was like, if it wasn't for that block, I mean, as much as Tyrese Maxey scored 5 of the last 8 points, and as much as the Sixers went on 11-2 run, if it wasn't for that block, I think the 76ers would have lost. And we're talking about the Yabu block. And what happens is he gets the block, then Maxey comes down and he scores, and they go up. But, the Sixers have to do way better if controlling the ball. This would have been a horrible loss. And they were lucky to escape with it by the way they played in that fourth quarter, because they just couldn't get anything right. They couldn't do anything at all.
That they cannot. And once again, we've touched on this before. The 76ers going into this game thinking that they could win before they saw the Wizards injury report and feeling confident about that with no Joel Embiid, no Paul George, and other players as well. So when you go in and you allow a team to come back, listen, the Wizards aren't trying to win games. I think we can all look at that throughout the season. They really want to capture that flag. But at the same time, there was a younger group out there. There's guys that don't usually play. They want to try to kind of get one over the Philadelphia 76ers, and they almost were able to. But these fourth quarter collapses have happened with their lineup secure, with their lineups not. It was the 22nd lineup change so far this year. I mean, there's no consistency with this team. How can there be when you look at that number as well? But to play like that in the fourth quarter once again is embarrassing for the Philadelphia 76ers. Nick Nurse is arguing with the official. He's screaming in their faces. And listen, he might be going out there for their players and trying to vouch for them. But at the same time, Kelly Oubre is in there trying to get fouled at the end. Maxey too frustrated. I get it. They're not going to get a whistle like Joel Embiid. That's just not going to happen. But you can't keep playing towards the foul. You can't get frustrated. It seems like they didn't even want to be out there on the floor in the fourth quarter. And I understand that this has been probably the toughest on Tyrese Maxey this year, but you can kind of tell right now at this point with his shot selection, things going on late down the stretch and everything like that. Keith, what keeps leading to these fourth quarter collapses? Because this isn't the first time this season that we've seen this, and it almost was really, really bad last night.
You know, the thing is, I just think that, well, first of all, they need a point guard. They need a guy, and that's not a knock at Maxey. And I don't want anybody to say, I mean, to think I am saying that. But Maxey is more of a scoring guard. And when you look at it, for the majority, for the most point, Tyrese Maxey is trying to get his own shot in the fourth quarter. He's not looking to get others involved, right? He's trying to like, okay, I'm gonna impact the game by taking people off the dribble, doing what I have to do. Like he didn't have an assist at all in that fourth quarter, but he had the most shots. Him and Reggie Jackson were tied for the most shots in that fourth quarter. So what happens is everything gets a little stagnated. We start seeing ISO ball for the most part, right? You do a lot of other things. And then, let's face it, they're just not that good to maintain leads either. Teams are stepping it up. Other teams have, deeper rosters, better players. And especially when Joel and Paul doesn't play. And what they're just doing is they're just like ratcheting it up a little bit. And all of a sudden, the Sixers can't withstand it. So that's the problem. I mean, they shot 37.5% in the fourth quarter, while the Washington Wizards, who look more like the Washington Generals, shot 50%. And get this, Corey Crispin, he had 10 points, and he was baking the Sixers in the fourth quarter with his quality 3-point shooting.
My biggest takeaway right now is it's embarrassing for the Philadelphia 76ers team. And everybody can say a win is a win, and that's great, and that's standing, and they're going to move their way up. But realistically, this team cannot show any consistency. They're losing fourth quarters. I mean, overall, losing that fourth quarter, when it's all said and done, they come out on top, but they're allowing teams to outscore them and almost falling in that game against the Washington Wizards is who we are talking about. I know the 76ers are bad, and I know they didn't have a lot of their key players, but the Wizards are the worst team in the NBA, and they didn't have a ton of their key players there last night either. So this team right now, they still got to figure it out. And once again, we're going to be looking kind of at their schedule, not throughout this episode, but as we go on throughout the remaining schedule in January here, because they got the Pelicans, and then it is time to wake up in Philadelphia, because if they don't, it is going to be a really, really tough run for this team. We alluded to it in the past episode that Nick Nurse says he has a plan for Joel Embiid and Paul George and possibly playing on back-to-backs. And well, we're going to wait and see if that happens, because after this and after the Pelicans, they've got a really, really tough stretch coming up throughout this month of January and early February as well. So once again, the Philadelphia 76ers, they come out on top 109-103. But this is not just affecting the team and the record right now. It is also affecting ticket sales at the Wells Fargo Center. People not wanting to come and watch this team. Listen, the Wells Fargo Center, they have great staff. It's a great place to go. But you also have to have a good team to bring in some people. And right now, the Philadelphia 76ers just not doing that. We'll talk about that on the other side. I want to take a moment to introduce you to a brand new mobile game that I'm really, really excited about, Ultimate College Basketball HC. If you've ever dreamed of being a college basketball head coach, this is your chance to step into those shoes. In Ultimate College Basketball HC, you control every detail of the program, from recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to oversee training camps, handling NIL deals, and managing scholarships. It is all in your hands. And when it comes to game time, you get to draw up offensive plays and set your strategy. The way you play won't just affect the current season, it will shape the future of your school's basketball program. It's a game that lets you feel the full weight of what it means to be a head coach and lead your team to glory as well. Here is a special offer. If this is everything you've ever dreamed of and more, and you want to hop on right now, for Locked On NBA listeners, use the promo code Locked On CBB in all caps. Make sure you go do that today inside the game store to get a free boost for your program. It's the perfect way to kickstart your coaching career. To download Ultimate College Basketball HC, just visit ultimate-cbb.com or look it up in the app stores as well. Ultimate College Basketball HC, begin your coaching legacy today. All right, so these ticket numbers and what we touched on earlier in the podcast, we're going to break down even more as well. I mean, people did not want to come and see this team whatsoever. There was lower level tickets going as little as $10 leading up to tip off. I mean,
$8.
$8. They're even less, $8. We haven't seen these numbers since the process years, and I think people even wanted to go and see them more during the process years because they were sometimes more electric and fun to watch than what we might have saw last night even. I mean, this is not a good product for the Philadelphia 76ers whatsoever. You might be having a losing record right now, but Keith, the last thing this team wants to lose is its fan base, because it can drive them throughout a lot of games. But if you lose a lot of people, it's not going to bode well. Now, granted, I know they'll probably come when Joel Embiid and Paul George is in the lineup, but still, I mean, it goes to show you that people do not want to watch this type of basketball.
Yeah, and someone brought up tonight, someone brought up to me, they said, they were all able to play on the West Coast. Like they go away and they play, but when they come home, they don't play a lot. And when you look at it, I don't know the particular numbers. I have to, research that. But it's true. Like, I mean, Joel Embiid went on that West Coast trip. Excuse me, he played in 5 of the 6 games, and they came home and he hadn't played in either game that they had, right? Monday or Wednesday. So that is a little bit upsetting, but it's also upsetting because, these people are paying ticket. Now, I get it. The Sixers are saying, look, we're doing what we got to do because we want to win a championship. Well, these people, they want to see what's going on in the regular season. Like, they spend a lot of money. This is supposed to be the team. I mean, you think about it. When Paul George was signed, he was basically with some of the sales reps, and they were calling fans, and he was saying, hey, this is Paul George. We want you guys to re-up. We want you guys to get a season ticket package. And now those people are like, bruh, you wanted me to get a season ticket package, and Joel's only played in 13 games, and you missed 11 games, right? So, that's the problem right there. Like, people are getting tired of it because they want to pay and see these guys play. No offense to Ricky Council, no offense to Justin Edwards, but people didn't pay to come see them. They want to go see the other people, and that's the reason why the ticket sales are going down drastically, and people aren't showing up like they used to.
People aren't, and you look at it right now too, and you say, okay, well, is Joel Embiid going to play, and do I even want to maybe leave work early or invest in going to that, bring my family for a night out and get everybody together if you're not going to be able to see the players that are destined for the Philadelphia 76ers team, right? So they have the home game coming up against the Pelicans, then they hit the road against the Magic, then they come back home against the Thunder. But when you look at it right now, once again, the 76ers, they say they have a plan. They say it's all going to be good, fine, and dandy. But who's going to want to see to pay for playoff tickets when this team ends up being maybe an 8th seed or a 7th seed in the playoff if they win a play-in tournament and then have to take on the Celtics or the Cavs or the top dogs of the East? People might not want to spend their money on that because you know the reality of that situation. So, yes, I understand that you want to load manage and you want to do these things to be able to save your guys for the playoffs. Well, those hopes are going to go all out the door when Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey, we're still having this conversation in February and March saying, okay, well, they still can't play together. What's going on? Before the trade deadline, we're having conversations of if the 76ers are going to get anybody. I mean, right now, it is bad for this team. And you look at it and you say, you kind of feel bad for the ticket sales people and for the fans as well, because they invest in this team, and this team right now is not investing back. Once again, Keith, as you alluded to, they say they have a plan, but at the same time, I mean, this basketball is not the high level NBA basketball that you want to bring your family and that you were promised by Paul George and others in the beginning of the season if you're a fan of the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, and you're right. You can say you have a plan and you hope that everything's going to work out. But as the saying goes, it gets late early. It's one of those things where, you're thinking like, okay, we're going to be able to mess around and do what we got to do and everything's going to be fine. Well, last I checked is, you got teams like Cleveland 32-4, Boston 27-10, the Knicks 25-13, right? Orlando 22-16, and they're getting their best player back, right? And then you have Milwaukee 19-16, Indiana 20-18, Miami 18-7, Detroit 19-18, Atlanta 19-18, and then you have Chicago 17-20. So the reason why I said all that is, you remember there was a point in time where a lot of these teams had losing records who were ahead of the Sixers. Right now, Chicago is the only one with a losing record. Whereas that means like the Sixers, they keep messing around and losing these games and they got a tough stretch. Then the other teams are just their gap is going to grow wider. And it's going to be more ground for the 76ers to try to overcome.
And realistically, too, I know some people might say, well, when you have that much talent on an NBA team, there doesn't need to be chemistry, this, that, and the other. There absolutely does. And we're already seeing it with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George, because it has barely worked between those three this season. They've had good individual performances, and they've had a little bit of a two-man game, but all three of them together, it has not clicked. And they're all talented players, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to click until they're consistently on the floor together, and you don't want to wait too long to do that. It's time, the fun is over, right? There's no more fun for this team right now, because you're right, Keith. When you look at it and you look at these records right now, 19 wins, the 76ers only have 15. That's what they're looking to catch up to. The Hawks, the Pistons, they all have winning records. The Heat at 18-17. Then you look at the Pacers, the Bucks, Magic, and then the top three of the Cavs, Celtics, and Knicks. The 76ers, they're consistently now playing catch up. To me, my takeaway is enough with this team. If Nick Nurse has a plan, it can't wait much longer than the stretch coming up in January. If you have a plan, Nick Nurse, you need to implement it now against these teams like the Thunder, the Magic, so on and so forth, because it is getting a little bit too late to just keep saying, oh, they have a plan and they'll figure it out later on.
Yeah. And not only that, it's kind of like the way these other teams are playing. I mean, the Sixers don't even look like a playoff team right now. I hate to say it.
They don't.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, yeah, they won last night, and as you said in the beginning, a win is a win. But they blew a lead against the worst team who was playing without their best players, right? I mean, Kyle Kuzma was the only guy that was out there that you say, okay, he's legitimate. But they blew a lead. A 15-point lead in the fourth quarter. That's not good. I mean, I can't say with 100% confidence that those teams ahead of them that they could beat them.
Right now, it doesn't look it unless this team gets some cohesion and some plan that they can prove to people early in this January stretch against these tough teams that they can start winning some ball games. So my takeaway is a win is a win, and this is the biggest a win is a win I've seen in a really long time for the Philadelphia 76ers. They come out on top, just barely getting by the worst team in the Eastern Conference in the Washington Wizards, 109-103. So we'll see if Joel Embiid and Paul George are back against the Pelicans, and then that stretch just gets tougher and tougher for the Philadelphia 76ers. They advanced to 15-20 in the season, still 5 games back from 500 on the year for this team out of Philadelphia. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you next time and see what the 76ers, the plan that they have in place going forward for this team.